Okay, so we're looking at reducing fractions so they become equivalent rational expressions. So the instructions are we're going to reduce it and then identify the values of the variables that must be excluded. I'll talk about that when we look at one of our problems. But first things first, when you're reducing, and I want you to put this in your notes, put a big star right there. Okay. You can reduce factors. Okay, you can reduce factors. Okay, not terms as far as canceling out, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, not terms. Okay, put a big exclamation point. Okay, throughout the unit we're going to be reducing a lot, so you got to know how to reduce and what to reduce. Okay, factors are things that are being multiplied. So just go ahead and put multiply above that. So those are factors. You can reduce out factors. Terms are things that are separated by a plus or minus. Plus or a minus. Okay. So here's a little example with just numbers, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So let's say we have 14 over 6. There's a fraction, right? 14 over 6. Well, we know what that reduces to. Actually, what does it reduce to? 7 over 3, right? But let's say, I know it's just a fraction, just with numbers here, but let's say we actually factored it. Notice the word factor. You factor it to things that multiply. Right? So what's 14? How does that, what multiplies? 7. Okay, so 7 times 2. So go ahead and put a little dot there. That's multiplication. Okay, over 3 times 2, correct? So there it is. It's actually factored. Those are the factors, right? And that's why we can reduce out something that's common from the top, from the bottom. These are being multiplied. These are factors. 7 is a factor and 2 is a factor of 14. It's multiplication. So yeah, we can reduce out the 2, leaves a 1. Divide by 2, leaves a 1. And there we go. And so 7 times 1, so it's 7/3, and that's how we reduced it, right? But we can cancel out or reduce factors. It's connected by a multiplication. Okay. On the other hand, it says, well, not terms. Okay, and this is why. Let me just write some terms here. Let's say we had 6 plus 14 over 6 plus 2. All right. Well, these are terms, like 6 and 14 are terms, right? Separated by a plus or minus. That's a term, that's a term. And also 6 plus 2 is 6 is 2. 6 is a term and 2 is a term. Okay, well, we know the correct answer. Let's actually get that first. What's 6 plus 14? 20 over 8. So actually, this is correct, which is 10/4. Is that 5 halves? Is that reduced to 5 over 2? Okay, so that's what the fraction actually is. But let's say we try to, and it looks inviting, but let's say we try to cancel or reduce terms, because 6 is a term, right? 14. What if we actually reduced out or can we just reduce 6 into 6? Let's see what happens. Just go ahead and do it on your notes. We're going to kind of cross it out, but let's say we reduce that. 6 goes into 6 once. That goes in there once. Leaves a 1 and a 1. Let's say, oh, hey, the 14 and the 2, hey, that reduces. Isn't that 7? So reduce that. 2 goes in there 7 times. 2 goes in 2 once. There we go. Looks like we can. And so what do we have? 1 plus 7. So what is that? 8 over 1 plus 1. 2. And that's 4? No. This is not right, because we know it should be 5 halves. Okay, so this, you cannot cancel terms because it's wrong. It doesn't work out. Okay, so put a circle around that whole thing and put a big line through it so you don't, make sure you know that you cannot do that. You cannot reduce terms if it's separated by a plus or minus. Okay, factors, definitely, reduce it out. Reduce it out. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and reduce some of these fractions. Okay, so, and then we're going to identify the values of the variables that must be excluded. So we'll look at that in a sec. Good? Okay. All right, so number 1, 6x cubed y over 26xy to the 5th. And you've done this before. So we're just reducing this fraction. By the way, are all of these being multiplied on the top? Yes, and multiplied, everything's, there's no, these aren't terms, these are all factors, so we can reduce. So let's do that. Well, let's, at least a number, we can reduce the this fraction. What goes into 6 and 26? Not 3, 2. 2. Okay, so 2 divided 6, that leaves a 3. 2 goes in there, 26, 13 times. Okay, so at least we have 3/13. That's how the number reduces. And now with variables, I go ahead and reduce. I look at this as there's 3 x's on the top, that's x cubed. 3 x's on the top, 1 x on the bottom. We reduce one of them out. Okay, and then how many are left? 2 of them, right? And where are they at? Top or the bottom? Top. There's 2 left on the top. Let's call that x squared. Okay, and this is y to the first, but there's 1 y on the top. There's 5 y's on the bottom. I reduce out one of them, and how many y's are left? Where are they at? On the bottom. So y, there's 4 y's left on the bottom. Okay? And there's nothing else we could reduce. So this is an equivalent fraction to that. So it's an equivalent rational expression. So, and we just reduced it like that. Okay? I guess there are some rules. If you have division, what do we do with the exponents? Well, the rule is subtract. So this would, so y to the first divided by y to the 5th, that's y to the 1 minus 5. We could do that. That's y to the 1 minus 5. Y to the negative 4. Well, negative 4, so it should be down below. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that. This is really easy just to look at, right? Okay. Oh, and then this, identify the values of the variables that must be excluded. All right. If you have a fraction, we got to make sure the denominator, we don't have 0 in the denominator. You cannot divide by 0, right? Okay. So I know the x got canceled out, but anywhere along the line, x is on the bottom. What can't x be? X can't equal 0 because that's 0 times anything. It's to be 0 on the bottom. So we'll put x cannot equal 0. And also y, in this case there or there, y can't equal 0 as well because that's undefined, right? Because you can't divide by 0. All right? Okay, let's look at another one here. So number 2, x squared minus 16 over x squared plus 3x minus 28. Okay, we want to reduce this fraction. And it's got to be an equivalent fraction. That's equal. Okay, well, can I reduce out the x squareds? Yeah, just reduce them out? No, why not? Because we can't do it. Because I said these are terms. I see on the top I see 2 terms. Well, one of the terms is x squared. The other term is 16. So you cannot reduce out terms separated by a plus or minus. So we can't. Well, what do we do then? Factor. Okay. Oh, what about the 16 and 28? Can I reduce those out? Reduce that? 4 goes into both, right? So divide by 4, divide by... No, because we can't reduce terms. Okay, okay, that's a term, that's a term. Okay, so someone said factor. Absolutely, let's go ahead and factor. All right, so the top, I think we know how to factor that, I hope. How does that factor? X plus 4 times x minus 4. There we go. And then on the bottom, let's try to factor that. So 2 parentheses. Okay, so x times x squared. What times what's 28? 7 and 4. Okay, 7 times 4. We need positive 3x plus 7 and then minus 4. Okay. So we factored it. Okay, now the x minus 4, okay, this is being multiplied to this x plus 4, so can we reduce these out? Yes, we can. Okay, these are factors. Okay, so that's gone, technically is a 1. Okay, so we can reduce those out. We can reduce factors. Okay, so then this is x plus 4 over x plus 7. And there you go. If you want, you can keep parentheses around it, doesn't matter. Okay, you can keep either way. Are we done, or can we cancel out the x's? Why not?
Because
They're terms. They're terms. Right? Separated by plus or minus. There you go. Okay, and then let's answer what values of x or whatever variables we have to exclude. So in this case, what can't x be? Well, x can be 0, because that just leaves us 7 on the bottom. We just don't want 0 on the bottom. So x can't be negative 7, right? Whatever makes it 0. So x can't be negative 7. And anywhere through the problem, so actually right there, what x can't be what? This was x minus 4. So x can't equal 4, because 4 minus 4 is 0. So also x can't equal 4. Okay? So that's what you have to exclude.
Wait, then why would you do that for the first?
Well, the first one or
y and x.
well, because
Yeah.
if x was 0, 0 times all that's going to be 0, makes it 0 on the bottom. Okay. Well, it was x minus 4. That was one of the factors there. So positive 4 would make that 0, not negative. If x was negative 4, that'd make it negative 8. Right? Yeah. Or, I mean, you could take each of these, set equal to 0, see what makes it 0. X minus 4 set equal to 0, add that over, x equals 4. So 4 makes it 0, so you got to throw that out. So x can't equal 4. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you put the x plus 4 on the equation, like the final equation is x plus 4 over x plus 7.
Okay, I see, because the top can be 0. It doesn't matter. We don't look at the top, any restrictions on the top. So we just look at what makes the denominator 0. And whatever makes the denominator 0, that's what we have to exclude. Okay, so yeah, so just look, it doesn't matter what's on the top. Okay, just look at the bottom. Okay, good question, good question. Okay, let's look at another one here. Okay, number 3. If g of n, and some of your homework problems are written like this, so I just want to make sure you're not confused. If g of n is equal to 3n minus 18n cubed, and f of n equals 6n, they want you to reduce something that looks like this. G divided by f of n. Okay, they give you g of n, they give you f of n. They want you to write what this thing is and then simplify. Well, first of all, this is just a notation. Just like f of x, this is g divided by f of n. So this is not, and I'll repeat, this is not g divided by f and then times n, right? This is not, you guys see what I'm talking about? So this is not times n, this is just notation. Just like f of x, that's not f times x, that's just f of x, that's the notation. Okay, so if I rewrite this, this is what it means. G divided by f, so it's g of n divided by f of n. Okay, no, nothing tricky, that's just what it means. And so let's write it out and simplify it. Okay, so what is g of n? There we go. Okay, so 3n minus 18n cubed over f of n, so which is 6n. There we go. Okay, now what do we do? How do we reduce it? Okay, we can't. It looks so inviting, doesn't it? Just reduce it out to basically 1/2. But we can't, right? Because it's separated by the minus there. We don't want to leave the 18n cubed hanging there. So, Sonny, what can we do? Okay, we can factor. We can factor. Okay, we can take out a 3 out of the top. In fact, can we take a little bit more? Yeah, let's take out a 3n. 3n, right? GCF, greatest common factor. So let's take out a 3n. All right, what does that leave us with? Okay, we need a 1 there, right? Minus what? 6n squared. Good. Okay, over. You can always check. Distribute that back. Make sure you get that. You get 3n times 1, so it's 3n minus 18n cubed. There it is. Okay, over 6n. Okay. Now can we reduce? Yes. 3n is a factor with this 1 minus 6. That's a factor. We can reduce factors. Okay, so 3 and the 6 reduce. That gives you a 2. It's on the green sheet. And then if you can get the notes from someone. Okay, there you go. So, and then what about the ends? Do those cancel? Yes. So ends cancel, ends cancel. So our answer, reduced, it's 1 minus 6n squared all over, well, the ends canceled. So 2. And there we go. Is that all there is? Yeah, and we'll do the restriction there. So is that completely reduced? Can't do any more? That is it. That is it. Cannot cancel, reduce the 6 and the 2.
What is it? 2 go on the bottom, not the top.
Well, we have 3 over 6. So divide by 3, you get 1. Divide 6 by 3, you get 2. And it's still on the bottom. Still on the bottom. Is that right? Right? If you had 3 over 6, that's 1 over 2, 1/2. 2's on the bottom. 2's on the bottom. Okay, and then restrictions. What n? Oops. N cannot be what? N could be -6. That's not going to make it 0. That'd make it -36 on the bottom. N can't equal 0. Okay, N can't equal 0. Okay. Because 6 times 0 is 0. All right. Okay, let's look at another one. Yes. All right. Number 4. Number 4. P minus 5 over 5 minus P. We want to reduce this. Well, we know we can't reduce the P's out like that, right? Just because they're terms. But we can take out a negative. So go ahead and put parentheses around these. It looks better. Let's go ahead and put parentheses around them. We could cancel these if this was P minus 5 on the top and P minus 5 on the bottom. The same thing on the top, same thing on the bottom. It just reduces out as 1, right? So why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and switch the bottom. So let's call this P minus 5 still on the top. Over. Let's switch this. And if we switch it, what do we have to do? Take out a negative. Okay. So take out a -1. And instead of 5 minus P, that's P minus 5. There you go. Okay. And then now reduce. Okay, so this whole thing's gone. That whole thing's gone. Leaves a 1. Leaves a 1. So what's our answer? 1 over -1, which is just -1. Okay? There you go. Question? You got to go. Yeah, switch your. Okay. All right. So some of you might be thinking, well, wait a second. We had a P minus 5. Is that kind of a term? Or is that a factor? Looks a little tricky. But if you have the same thing on the top, same thing on the bottom, they can reduce. You could also think of it like this, times 1 times 1. So if you want to say, hey, that's they are factors, sure, now you can just reduce that out. Okay. Just another way to look at it. Okay, number 5. Okay, 4x plus 1 over 16x squared minus 1. All right. So what do we do? We could factor the bottom. Okay, so let's do that. So this is, let me rewrite 4x plus 1 over, how does the bottom factor? 4x plus 1 times 4x minus 1. There we go. I'll put parentheses around that just to make it look better. Now can I reduce out these?
Yeah.
Yes. This can go, leaves a 1 and 1. Okay, so what's our, so it's 1 over 4x minus 1. There you go. Okay, and then I guess we better do the restrictions there. So x can't equal, well, can't equal what for this one? Positive 1? Or how do you figure out what makes that 0? Set it equal to 0 and solve it. And that's what makes it 0. Or, so you guys can do this in your head. What is, x can't equal what? 1/4. 1/4. So if you want to know what makes that 0 that you got to throw out, just go 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. Solve it. Add 1, 4x equals 1, divide by 4, x equals 1/4. So I know x can't equal 1/4 because it makes it 0. Okay, for that one. What about this one? X can't equal negative 1/4. So x can't equal 1/4 or negative 1/4. There you go. Because that makes that 0. All right? Makes the denominator 0. Okay. Okay. Okay, number 6. Okay, yeah, question.
On number 4,
Yep.
is there nothing that you could do
Oh.
to set equal to?
0, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. P cannot equal, let's look at this. What makes it 0? 5. Positive 5. So P cannot equal 5. Sorry, I forgot to do that. P can't equal 5 because 5 minus 5 is 0. Question.
The number 5, why did you put it negative 1/4?
Because of this one right there.
So if you plug it in the classroom, then you get negative 2.
If I plug it in,
Like if you plug in the 4x minus 1.
sure, sure. Right, but this is more, so that you plug in negative 1/4, that's 0 times negative 2. What's 0 times negative 2? 0, so it makes the bottom 0. Yeah. So it makes, whatever makes each factor 0. Right? So even this, let's say, oh, well, x can't equal 4, right? What makes that 0? That makes that 11. Right? It doesn't matter because that's 0 times 11, so it makes it 0. Right? So, all right. Okay, and then I don't want to confuse you guys here, but some of you guys might be thinking, well, wait a second. Look at 4 and 16. Looks like 4 is a factor. It's being multiplied by the x, and the 16 is multiplied by the x squared. Well, what's wrong? Why can't I? Because this is part of this term. Okay, so you can't reduce that. Okay. All right. Just making a point there. Okay. Y squared minus 4y plus 7y minus 28 over y cubed minus 64. Okay. So we got 3 more here. I know these notes are a little bit long, but 3 more, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we need to reduce this fraction. So what do? Grouping. And then so, yeah, let's factor and factor by grouping. 2 and 2, 2 and 2, and then so. All right, so let's do that. So what can we take out of the first 2? A y. And that leaves us with y minus 4. Okay, so y times y minus 4. What can we take out of the second two? A 7. So do I just put 7 there? No. What do we put? Plus 7. If you take out a positive 7, you got to have a positive 7. If you didn't have the plus there, it looks like multiplication, which it is not. Okay. So plus 7 times y minus 4, right? Okay, again, if you distribute, you get plus 7y minus 28. You got it there. Okay, over, I know we can factor the top further, but let's go ahead and factor the bottom. Start doing that. Do you guys remember how to SOAP factor? Okay, cube root of y cubed is y. What's cube root of 64? 4. Okay. So this is what? Y minus 4 times, so same opposite always positive, so y, so we're just looking at this now, right? Do you guys remember this? Or so y squared plus, good, this times this, so 4y, always positive, 16. There you go. Okay? Okay, now what? Now what? Simplify the top. Simplify the top. Okay, so how do we simplify the top? Take out a GCF, greatest common factor. So y minus 4, just take one of those out. It's common to both. And what do we have left? Y plus 7. There you go, y plus 7. Over, I'll just recopy this, y minus 4 times y squared plus 4y plus 16. Okay? Okay, now what? Cancel out a y minus 4, y minus 4. There you are. Factors there. Leaves a 1 and a 1. And then, so, oh, try to factor this? Why not? You can't. This will never, ever, 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 never, ever factor. So don't try to factor it. Ever. Ever, ever. Okay, so there we go. So it's y plus 7 over y squared plus 4y plus 16. That's as reduced as you're going to get. And the restriction. Okay. So y cannot equal, well, I don't, the top, it doesn't matter. It can equal negative 7. Because it's not going to make the denominator 0. I'm worried about the denominator being 0. So y can't equal 4. Right? Y can't equal 4. And then when we actually solved this a couple units ago, we did the quadratic formula. Wasn't this the imaginary? It had an I in there. So there's no y value, real number y, in the universe that's going to make that 0, except an imaginary number. So there we go. That's the only thing we have to worry about is y being 4. That makes that 0. That'll never be 0. Okay? So there we go. Okay. 2 more here. Hang with me. Go along. Okay, number 7. Okay, f of x equals 25 minus x squared. G of x equals x minus 5. And then we're going to simplify this next expression. F of x over bracket g of x quantity squared. So that's what they want us to simplify. Okay, well let's write it out. Okay, so this is, well, what do I put for f of x? 25 minus x squared. Okay, so 25 minus x squared over, well, what's this mess thing here? Yeah, it's just g of x squared. Okay, well, there's g of x. It's x minus 5 squared. There we go. So let's reduce this and we're good. Well, how do you want to reduce this? Someone help, please. Okay, we could do this two ways. If we don't like the way this looks, you know, not having your variable first, switch it and pull out a negative, right? Could do that. Or we can just factor it as is. It'd be 5 plus x, 5 minus x. Okay. How about we switch it? What the heck? Let's just go ahead and switch it. So let's take out a negative. I think we're more used to factoring it like that, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So instead of 25 minus x squared, it's x squared minus 25. Okay, over x minus 5 squared. And then we can factor. Okay, so this is negative parentheses, right, x plus 5, x minus 5. And then over what? X minus 5 squared. And if you want, you can call that x minus 5 times x minus 5. Or you can keep it x minus 5 squared. Just know that there's two of them on the bottom. I'll just keep it squared just because. Left to right. Okay, can something reduce out? An x minus 5. We have one of these x minus 5s on the top. We have two of these x minus 5s on the bottom. So you cancel one, and you're left with how many of them? One of them. Okay, so here's our answers. So negative x plus 5. This is gone. One of those is gone. So we just have an x minus 5 to the first left over. There we go. There we go. So we canceled one of them and left one on the bottom. Okay. Is that all we could do on this one?
No.
Restriction. Oh yeah, restriction. So x cannot equal. Can't equal what? 5. There. Okay. X can't equal 5. Just off the bottom. Okay. We just want to make sure the denominator is not 0. You can have 0 on the top, so we don't worry about the top. Okay. Okay. Last one here. Okay. Number 8. Okay. Write a rational. Okay. Write a rational expression with denominator of 8b that is equivalent to, okay, and we'll do a couple of these. We're basically going to write equivalent fractions. You'll see. Okay, write a rational expression with denominator 8b that's equivalent to, so the first one, a over b. Okay, so they want us to write a fraction that has a denominator of 8b. Does this have a denominator of 8b? No. Can we make it have a denominator of 8b? Yes. How do we make this have a denominator of 8b? Okay, multiply by 8, right? So multiply by 8. Now it has an 8b. But if we multiply the denominator by 8, what do we have to do to the top? Multiply the top by 8. Okay, and so this is 8a over 8b. Now it has a denominator of 8b, and it's equivalent to a over b. We're just making equivalent fractions. There you go. Okay, b, what if we have 1/4? Right, so we want an equivalent fraction to 1/4, but we want the denominator to be 8b. Okay, there you go. So multiply by 2b, and so multiply the top by 2b. So what's our equivalent fraction that has a denominator of 8b? It's 2b over 8b. There you go. And that's 1/4. But it has a denominator of 8b. Okay, last one here. Equivalent to 1/4 of a over b. What does that mean? So, same question. So we want the denominator to still be 8b, but equivalent to 1/4 of ab. So we got to write out what this thing is first. So 1/4, what does of mean in math? Multiply. There we go. So isn't this 1/4 times a over b? Okay, so write that. So I'm going to actually multiply this. So that's a over 4b. Right? So now we're back to the same thing over there. So write in a fraction that has a denominator of 8b. That's equivalent to that. So now we can do that. So multiply by 2. And then multiply top by 2. Okay. And so we have what? 2a over 8b. And there you go. Okay? Okay, make sense? Questions? So we can reduce out what type of things, but not what type of things? We can reduce out factors, things being multiplied, but we cannot cancel or reduce terms. Okay? All right, so let's get started on the assignment. Let me hand out the packet.